I want to introduce Tom Gresh of Celedinas right now. Celedinas is he's vice president of Marsh McLennan. This is Marsh McLennan Agency, one of South Florida's recognizable brokers in the marine industry, insurance industry. An off-time speaker here, and thank you. Tom, take it away.
Thanks, Bob. Appreciate it. Good to be here with you guys this afternoon. Jeff said, if I go over 8 minutes talking about insurance, everyone's going to fall asleep. So I think I got it down. Thanks for the recommendation, Jeff. So we're going to talk about survey recommendations, pretty much not with the class survey, but pre-purchase survey, and what's the owner's responsibility, the new buyer's responsibility, as far as signing a letter of compliance. Anyone have a survey going on right now? Just one person? Two? Okay, we got enough. Okay. So insurance is often an afterthought, and usually they think about it when the closing nears. A client once told me, hey, I pay a lot of premium, send me some policies and some documents, but what do I really get? Well, the owner gets a contract, which is the insurance policy, and within the contract, they would pay a claim based on the terms and condition of the contract. To obtain insurance, the owner has to do several things, but we're going to talk about the one thing he needs to do when he conducts a pre-purchase survey is that he is going to need to sign a letter of compliance for that survey. So let's talk about a little bit more about the letter of compliance and the survey. I don't have a clicker. Thanks. Give me a clicker. Okay. So here we go. Let's just start from the beginning, the basics. Paul Flannery's always wanted a Merit, so he had a great year, and he's going to buy a Merit now. So obviously, he's going to need to get a survey on the boat. Typical surveyor here, but what's going to happen? Do you guys know the condition of the boat before you're getting into the survey? Have you looked into it? How many recommendations are we going to have? Are the recommendations going to be truly detrimental to the seaworthiness and safety of the vessel? That's the key thing we're going to look at for the letter of compliance. You know, you can have a lot of cosmetic recommendations, but we're going to worry about the ones that are detrimental to the survey, or detrimental to the seaworthiness and safety of the vessel. So we're going to look at a typical letter of compliance, LOC, that the new owner is going to have to sign. I'm going to want to read off the first couple sentences in the last paragraph here. I think it's important. I warrant as the owner of the yacht identified above that all recommendations, observations, findings described in the reference marine survey and or detailed herein have been complied with to acceptable marine standards and practices. Any items not yet completed are listed below, along with the date and method of expected completion or other explanation. So that means that any item that is not complied with before the closing, they want it listed, and generally they'll give you about 30 days to complete those recommendations, as long as they're not significant. The last part is the more important part, and is where we get in the contract part of the yacht insurance policy. I understand and acknowledge that coverage for a claim may be denied if a loss is caused by or result directly or indirectly from non-compliance with any of all the items described in the reference marine survey and or detailed above, and that the policy will be void from inception if I conceal or misrepresent any material facts relating to this insurance at any time. So that means those items need to be complied with, not just sign the letter. That's pretty much a standard industry letter compliance. I like to use a little different one when I can. Most companies will accept a modified one that I use, and where I do modify it is where it is doesn't say all recommendations, because I don't think that it is an intent of a letter of compliance to address cosmetic issues or smaller issues that aren't detrimental. But if you sign one that says all recommendations, potentially that could come back in a claim. So the one I use, the word I change, is all recommendations pertaining to the integrity of the hull, machinery, and or seaworthiness and safety items. So that's going to be more of, you know, the bilge pumps, fire extinguisher system, any kind of wiring issues, pretty much anything that conflicts with the safety or seaworthiness of the vessel, they want repaired, and if it's noted in the survey. So what happens if? So Paul bought a nice Merit and only had a couple deficiencies, a seacock or something that he got repaired before the closing, or the seller agreed to repair them, so Paul could sign that letter of compliance. But I'm sure there's cases where the owner signs the letter of compliance and says, hey, listen, I just got this boat, but I'm going to the Bahamas for a week, and I really want to take this trip. Well, if he had a loss or a claim that was from a deficiency noted in the survey, seacock, electrical issue, and it resulted in a claim, the company would most likely decline that claim. It also pertains to the mechanical survey. So if you do a mechanical survey, the owner's also going to need to sign a letter of compliance for the survey. We had one instance where we had an engine survey completed, we submitted everything for binding, and then the insurance company noted that in the survey, the engine surveyor said, a borescope is recommended for further inspection of the engine. Well, that held up, well, they didn't hold up the closing, but it was a problem because there was no borescope completed. So what we got is we just got about a 3-week extension where we're able to bind port risk, and the owner conducted a borescope within when he could schedule one, and everything turned out clean. So no problems with that. But if an engine survey does note a borescope or further inspection, the insurance company is going to look to have that done. So let's look at a wreck, or yeah, this is the worst one I could find. So has anyone had a really bad survey, 200 plus surveys, 20 pages, 30 pages? Okay, it happens. It happens a lot of time on the bank-owned boats where the boats maybe sit on the hard for a couple years. Well, what's the owner going to say? The owner's going to say, I'm not going to fix anything. I'm done with this boat. I'm kind of giving it away, so I'm not going to fix anything. The buyer says, the yacht's a really good deal. I'm stealing it, and I'm going to put it in the yard, and I'm going to do a 6-month refit on it. So I'm not going to fix these items. So how does he sign the letter of compliance, and how do we get him insurance? But what they expect from the insurance company? Well, the insurance company is going to be very cautious once they see 20, 30 pages of recs. Even if the recs aren't detrimental, it's still going to turn a red light on in these underwriters' minds. And they're going to be very cautious. Some are just going to decline, walk away from the quote, or just refuse to bind. If you hand the survey in the last second when we're trying to bind coverage and it hasn't been reviewed, the underwriter could just bind coverage. So it's good to plan early if we know there's going to be a lot of deficiencies. The company could provide port risk, so to give the owner time to repair the deficiencies. The company can also, and most likely in these situations, request the key is the original surveyor to return, inspect the items, and make sure those deficiencies were complied with. So how do we make it happen? Well, let's just assume it's more of a worst case scenario. Well, we want to plan ahead. If you know you got a boat that's going to be torn up by the surveyor or it's in tough shape, we need to plan ahead. Repair all deficiencies before the closing. Well, that's pretty standard. But if we got a tough boat, pretty much the seller is going to say, I'm not going to fix those items. Perform a pre-survey. This could be more of a casual survey. And the repairs, or get as many deficiencies repaired as possible. And they get the survey to return once those deficiencies are repaired, and get him to do a final survey that you're going to submit to the insurance company. I've had actually several brokers, probably more in the last couple of years, do this, and I think it's helped a lot with the closing and made everyone a little happier during the process. What you can do is what we've done in the past in a couple of boats where we had mechanical issues, is that we had a closing at the yard where the work was going to be completed. So if the boat's in Miami, it's in tough shape, we can get insurance, we might get port risk insurance, but if the work's going to be done in Palm Beach, we're not going to be able to close the boat and get the boat to navigate to Palm Beach. We want to get the closing, we want to have the seller bring the boat to Palm Beach and then close at the marina, or the marina where the work's going to be done. Request permission for sea trials. So sea trials are not always going to be included on a port risk situation, but you want to have them included if you need to do sea trials. You need to document the repairs too. So that would mean having the original surveyor come back, have a checklist, ensure that everything was complied with as far as deficiencies. And most likely, if we're talking about a significant bad survey, the insurance company is going to want to make this happen anyways. So this is the general ways we can get through a tough survey or a general survey and have the owner sign a letter of compliance and make sure he gets a claim paid should there be one. Thank you. What,
Any
how many minutes was
questions?
that? Hold on, Jeff, how many minutes was that?
You were great.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions?
Tom, going back to the, I forgot what you called it, but the slide that had the, here's what we fixed, but it's not, exactly the wording that the underwriter suggested?
Oh,
Did- you don't-
the one I used, the terminology
Yeah, the
I
one,
used? Yes.
yeah. I mean, so is it okay if you're presented with an insurance quote with that wording and you just change it as you've sort of suggested, or you'd need to go through your broker and stuff like that?
I would ask the broker if they can customize it and change that wording for you. Some companies will only accept their specific letter of compliance, but I found I just submit mine, honestly, and they accept it. So I think that wording's important, especially when they're with some of the contractual language in there, so to try to get as liberal and get as many benefits as the owner as possible. Jeff?
When it comes to the insurance and post-survey deficiencies and whatnot, why I like to think that I can count on the agent to liaise with the underwriters to create flexibility where it's needed. Can you just tell us a little bit about that and how much pull you actually have with underwriters and how do they view that?
Well, sure. I mean, I think that's part of our job is to negotiate, and I think we do that. Though I'm going to have I don't think anyone has a lot of leeway when it comes down to, because the survey is a documented, it documents the issues with the boat. So it's really, that's a conversation with the surveyor more than me and the insurance company. Because in reality, the underwriters are, people like me and you, and they have a job. If they have documentation that there's a problem with the boat and they underwrite it and provide insurance for it and there's a loss, they need to answer for that. They're going to have to answer for their job pretty much when they have a claim. And they're going to have to tell their boss, this is why I provided coverage for this boat. And if it's documented in the survey, they're going to have to be able to explain that away. So I don't think you're going to get a lot of leeway if things are documented in a survey.
That one right here.
Are there insurance companies that are offering, over here,
Sorry. Yeah.
that are offering mechanical defects in older boats, for instance, that have that clause in their coverage? I've had some older boats that had a gear failure, for instance, transmission blew up.
Yeah.
And the mechanics came in, tore it apart, and said, you know what? This was never put together properly. This is a manufacturing defect, and the insurance company covered it. Is
Okay.
that
Insurance, there's no certainty, certainly, especially in a claim. So what I can say in an older boat, I think you're going to have a very difficult time to find manufacturer's defect that is included or not excluded in the policy. So most on an older boat, it's going to be excluded on an older boat. Most of the time, I'm not going to say all the time. So especially with mechanical, so machinery is covered underneath the insurance policy, but it's for sudden and accidental and cannot be from lack of maintenance or wear and tear. So, with an older boat, I think you're going to have a hard time if you have a gear that's 20 years old, I think you're going to have a hard time getting an insurance company paying for that.
Okay, we've got one right here, too.
Okay.
Some insurance policies cover latent defects. So in that example, it's considered a latent defect. Depending on the coverage, some policies will cover latent defects, other policies will cover resulting damage from latent defects. But I wanted to raise the issue of supply warranty of seaworthiness so that every owner has an obligation to make sure that the vessel is seaworthy on the dimensions of the policy. Every policy
Tom, I just wanted to add to what
Oh.
you were talking about. Hello.
Dolores Sherrod specs, she's actually should be up here, not me.
Yeah. Well, he's exactly right as far as the survey recommendation form is concerned, and I just wanted to add that one of the words that we like to see is addressed. So there may be 150 recommendations, but if you have a plan that you can give to the underwriter to say, we are addressing these and these are how we are addressing them, then underwriters, reasonable underwriters can work with that plan, and it does help as far as, getting a boat closed. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that addresses maybe Jeff's question a little bit, but it's still not going to eliminate, if it's documented in that survey, it's still not going to eliminate that deficiency, but certainly like addressing what Jeff says, we can work to put a plan, communicate on behalf of the owner how he's going to address those items.
Okay,
That's it.
we're going to move along now. Thank you, and thanks for those great comments out there, Tom.